Welcome back to the mill, ladies and gentlemen, people from around the world. We are going to cut this white oak log, and what I'm going to show you here to keep in the feeling of education is how to set your scale up for what you're cutting, how to set your lumber scale up, how to use your lumber scale. It's a massively misunderstood thing, and I figure, you know what, I got to set a 6/4 scale on this log. So I'm going to show you how to do it. And I'm going to pause you for 1 second. We're going to walk down the other. Well, first, let me say that this log on the small end is 14 inches across inside the bark. Now, this particular log, the customer wants 6/4 square boards out of it. So we're going to get it into a cant. It's a white oak. And we are going to mill 6/4 boards. The biggest square that we can get out of this log based on the small end, it is a little bit crooked and it's got a flare on the other end and blah, 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 blah. But the absolute biggest square that we can get out of that end right now is around 9.8 inches. You get that from multiplying the 14 times 70%. And that is 70 and 28, which is 9.8. 98, 9.8. So we're going to get about a 10-inch cant out of this log, right around there. You cannot get anything bigger without leaving wane on. So the absolute biggest square that you can get out of a circle, we use 70%, but it's actually 0.70711. So it's almost 71%. But we just use 70 because it's easy to multiply. So I use 70%. Believe me, if you go back and watch my videos, I always come out right. So, and I mean right on. So this particular log, we're going to shoot for a 10-inch cant. So when I take it down into a square, the 10 inches gives me something in the back of my brain to make sure that I don't break it. So as you're taking the sides off and you wonder, can I take another flitch off? Can I take another flitch off? As long as we don't approach that 10 inches, then we're doing okay. And then it also gives us something that we can measure width with. So if we take a skim cut and we're 10 inches wide, straight down the middle of the log, that's probably as much as you can take off there. You don't want to go one more because then you're going to cut into your other side and you're going to be like 11 wide on one side and 9 wide on the other. So I wanted to explain that first, but let's go look at the lumber scale, and I'm going to show you how I set up my lumber scale to cut 6/4 boards. There are 3 ways of doing it, okay? We're going to show you all 3. That is sans a DRO. So with the actual lumber scale. So rather than pausing you, I am going to show you on here, and then I will pick up the camera and bring you in close in a second, but I want to explain it to you first. So on my mill, this outside scale right here, which you can't see very well, but I will explain it to you, is my height that my mill will cut off the bunks. The bottom of the kerf that my mill will cut, this is the dimension that it cuts out here. And then we have on the standard Norwood scale, we have a 3/4 scale, a 4/4 scale, a 9/4. I don't think that's 9/4. I think that might be 9. Oh, I can't remember this one. Here's an 8/4. This one is not 9/4. It's like 9/8, I think. And then we have a 3, a 4, and an 8 on this scale. And because there was no 5/4 scale on Norwood stuff, I went out and bought this magnetic scale right here that has 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, and 8/4 and they're all color coded. These scale numbers take into consideration the kerf of the saw blade. So the kerf that the saw cuts. So this 3/4 scale is, these lines are not 3/4 of an inch apart. They're 7/8 of an inch apart. So they cut 3/4 thick plus an 1/8 inch for the kerf. These also on this color coded scale take into consideration the thickness of the kerf. So what we have to do, let me back you up just a little bit for a second so I can explain all three methods to you. What we have to do is decide whether we're going to do mathematics and just use the outside scale, and you can mathematically drop, let's say you're cutting 4/4, you can drop 1.1 inch each time just using math. It's pretty simple. Or whether we are going to scale off the top of the log or off the bottom of the log. And the difference between those two is how you want your final cut to end up. So get this out of the way. If I scale off the bottom of the log, meaning that my scale is on 6/4 increments like this, when I cut down and I get to my bottom cut, I'm going to leave a 6/4 board. So I'm going to, my final cut, my final board that's on the bunks is going to be 6/4 thick. That's how I do it 99% of the time. The reason for that is that we're going to cut the top off this, and then we're going to cut the bottom off it, and then we're going to cut a side, this side, and then we're going to flip it up, and we're going to have 3 square sides and 1 round side. And if I scale off the bottom, my scale will tell me where to take the top cut. And then I go down and I end up with a 6/4 board at the bottom. If I scale off the top, what that means is that we're going to come up here, we're going to cut the top off this log until it's flat, and then we're going to set our scale to that number, and we're just going to drop on 6/4 increments, and then our waste cut is the bottom one. Now that's a little bit more dangerous because let's say that your last cut ends up being a division where you would have to drop to 1/4 inch, which you can't do. On this mill, I can't cut below 1 inch. So it's always safer to scale off the bottom than scale off the top for waste. Now, there are circumstances and times that you want to scale off the top. Sometimes I might have some weight on the bottom and don't feel like flipping the log, so I want that to be my waste, and we just scale off the top. Maybe my 3 sides are beautiful and the top's beautiful, and I'll change my scale off the top, cut boards until I can't cut anymore, and Bob's your uncle. But most of the time, what we want to do is set our 6/4 scale off the bunk so that our final cut is the thickness that we want. And that tells us when we start up here, if you wonder, well, how far down do I need to go? I just put it on scale and cut, and then drop on scale. And sometimes that can get a little tricky if you put it on scale and it makes a skim cut and cuts out right here. Then you got to make a decision of what to do next, and maybe you'd have to you drop and make a skim cut or whatever. But those are really the 3 ways that you can do it if you don't have a DRO. I do have a DRO also, and I can just set my DRO and I can drop on DRO numbers as I come down, which is what this pickup is right here, is my wiring for my DRO, and that gives me increments down to 30 seconds on my drops. But what our goal is here is to clean up the top, clean up the bottom, clean up one side, flip it on its other side, and however wide these boards come out, great, and then drop on 6/4 scale and finish this log off. That's what the customer wants. That's what we're going to do. I have it sitting very, very flat. I did leave the bell end here rather than getting a chainsaw out. Didn't feel like it today. I left the bell end sticking off this bunk so that it was not interfering with the height of the log. And now I'm going to take you out of the holder and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. We'll show you how to change, how to set your scale up for exactly what I just said. So we're going to kind of pull this mill back a little bit and we're going to drop down. So what you want to do is to set your 6/4 scale on this is this yellow scale right here. Now this black line is pretty thick. I always like to set it at the top. Let me just crank it up to, so that's how, if you look at that one right there, that's how I set my scale so that my red line is at the top of that black line. And we need to set this up to set ourselves on scale off the bottom to something on our outside scale that equals 1.5 inch scale. So the simplest way to do this is to drop this all the way down to 1.5 inch off the bunks, which will keep hitting that stupid receiver. I'll show you in a second. So we're going to drop this all the way down. Now you can do math too, so you could go up to 3 5/8 would be, 3 3 1/8 would also be on 1.5 inch scale. So right now I'm on the top of my, from my perspective viewing up, the top of my line is on 1.5 inch. So now I have to make this yellow mark, the top of that black line, also there. Because it's magnetic, I can just pull it down. I'm just going to do it. I'll let you guys watch, but I'm watching over the top of you. Okay. So now, from my perspective, my red line's at the top of the black line on my yellow scale, and I'm at 1.5 inch over here. So right now, I am on 1.5 inch scale from the bunks, from the bottom, which means that when I make my last cut, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dropping on this 1.5 inch scale. If you ever hear me say I'm dropping on scale, I'm going to be dropping on these yellow marks coming down. My last cut will be 1.5 inch thick. So that's the simplest way to do it. You can also put this at 3 1/8, or then if you go 1.5 inches, it would be 4 1/8 plus a half is 4 5/8 plus the eighth for the kerf would be 4 3/4. So if you don't want to drop it all the way down, and you know math, you also could set it at 4 3/4. Now, if I go up to 4 3/4 right now, you're going to see that the 4 3/4 in the top of the line also line up. And then the next one would be 6 1/4 plus an eighth. So it should be 6 3/8. Let's go up to 6 3/8. So you can do the math if you want. And you can see at 6 3/8, I'm also at the top of that line. So, if you don't want to drop it all the way down, you could do the math out and just set it on this 6 3/8 line also. But that's how you set your inch scale, your cut scale that includes the kerf off the bottom of the cut. And that is how you would set on Norwood scale. If you are a Norwood customer and you only have the Norwood scale, that's how you set these. Also, you would just have to use that adjustment right there to set these, the 3/4, 4/4, 8/4, exactly the same way. The one on the left is your adjustable scale. This one on the right is already adjusted to the numbers, I believe. So in other words, this 3/4 scale, your bottom cut would be at 3/4. There you go. 4/4 scale would be at 1 inch. There you go. So this is already adjusted to your number over here. You don't have to pick it up and put it down. All you have to do is follow. If you cut in 4/4, you can follow these 4s, or in my case, I can set my scale and do it on these red numbers, which is my 4/4 scale. So if you want to know where to get that adjustable scale, I got it. Look up magnetic log scale. I can't remember exactly where I bought it. Let me see if I can see a manufacturer name on it. It's kind of weird that they don't have one on it. It must be some weird copyright infringement because there is no manufacturer number on this magnetic scale. Very strange. But for what we're going to do, and when you're cutting dimensional lumber, just make sure that's right. Let's go up to, yeah, it looks right. All right, so that's how you set your scale. I am on scale so that my final board will end up at that. And in this case, I'm just going to cut the 3 sides off it and then use my scale to tell me where to start my 4th side, and we will just mow through it. If you're not sure how the log's going to come out, you might want to wait to set your scale till later. I can start using my scale anytime I want. Also, any flitch cuts that I take off this, if they're of any value whatsoever, I will take them off at 6/4 so that I can edge them down later and make sure that he gets a board out of it. So I am going to fire up the mill. We have a Silvertip Turbo 7, a Wood-Mizer Silvertip Turbo 7 on the mill. It is a white oak, and I am running water and pine allen, which will not be a big deal. There is a little bit of dirt in this log. Between this log and the next log, these 2 logs will smoke this Turbo 7. Just to let you know that. It's not the same as cutting with a Stella Cut band where I just cut 3,000 board feet. These 2 logs will smoke that band. It will be done after these 2 logs. I kind of have to video this to keep track of how long this takes me because I'm charging this customer by the hour. Most likely, this will end up being just a 2-hour bill, $400, which in white oak is not a bad deal. It's about 15 inches high here and 15 inches high here. I'll probably start around 14 with this bell end. If this bell end will fit, I will start at 14, and we will start taking this log apart. You get to see how the Silvertip Turbo 7 cuts. I'm going to fire up the mill, get it warming up while I grab my brushy thing and turn on my water and get my brushy thing, and we'll brush off the bark. Hopefully I don't run out of fuel. There's not a lot of dirt on the infeed side here, so that's a good thing. And hopefully I will be able to turn this log. I don't see as it being a problem. I am injured, but I don't see it as being a problem. Hopefully there is no metal in this log. I don't see any staining. I think we're all good. So I think we're just going to start at 14. If I get a reasonable flat at 14, I'll flip it. If not, we'll take a flitch off or we'll make a determination. So it looks like it is going to fit around the bell end at 14. I just want to double check. That's not going to hurt anything. It's almost going to cut out. It's almost not deep enough. There's a little dip. Yeah, there's a little dip in the log right here. I think it's probably safer just for me to take it at 13. Save myself a cut. I'm not going to get anything out of it by skimming it right there. So I'm going to go to 13. This is going to look like an enormously thick cut to start out with, but it's really not when it comes down to the log itself. I'm going to come back up to 14 and try it there. I can see some, I might steal a board out of this if I do it here. So let's go ahead with it. Sometimes that skim cut works out to help you get your bearings. I know that looks really thick, but it's really not. I am going to have to take another board off here. Now, it's not good enough right here to take a 5/4 board, so I'm just going to drop down 1 inch to 13 and take a flitch cut. Then I'm probably going to flip it. So this has got some good wood in it. I'm going to throw it all the way over with my flitches. Silver tip Turbo 7's cutting beautiful. If you want to show this, I'm going to shut the mill off. I'll show you this cut so we can compare. So you can compare it to what you see with the Stella Cut bands. Now, I wouldn't run the Stella Cut band on this just because it's 10 degrees. And believe me, this white oak is really hard getting started because it's dry down here and it's really wide. So it really doesn't like getting into the log. Once it gets into the log where it's nice and wet like right here, I can push as fast as I want. So I'll give you a good look at the finish here, what the Silver Tip Turbo 7's cut like. I'm going to try and get in nice and close. I can't see good with my sunglasses on, but yeah, it's nice, smooth. Now, it does not like coming into the log right here because this end right here is so dry, so hard, and it's kind of wide. So it hates this first few inches where the swell is, but then after that, it settles right in and I can really push as fast as I want here. We're going to go ahead and flip her over. Might as well show the whole thing, huh? Actually, I'm going to pause you guys and I will bring you back after I get it flipped over. All right, so even though we know this log is going to cant out no bigger than 10, what does that tell us to do right now? Now, it tells me I had to check my stops. As long as my stops are below, say 9, which they're like 8, 8, and 7, then I'm okay on this cut. And we are going to try to stay away from 10 inches as we come down here. Maybe even, because there was one little piece of sapwood down here, maybe even not go below 11. So we could take 1 inch off the other side if we had to. But we're going to come down now, cut this side down to somewhere around 11 inches, get a flat, and then we'll flip it on its side, and we'll cut a couple more cuts. So we're looking for 11 inches with a nice flat spot is what we're looking for. That gives us options later. So let's see what 12 looks like. 12's To skim, I might get a board if I do it at 12. So let's do that. Let's try and take it at 12, and then we'll take it at 11. All right, that did not work, but it doesn't hurt us. If I had just gone to 11, I would have had an around side, so it doesn't hurt us. We're going to come back and go to 11. Keeping the numbers round just helps. It might be somewhat of a board in that piece. And I think at this point it just makes sense just to go right straight to 10. Cut it. We're probably done with the sides. I did not waste anything on that cut. He wasn't getting a whole board out of it anyway. Now we're going to flip it on its side, square it up, take the top off the other side. We've got pretty good heartwood all the way down this one. It's a pretty good clean face. Fairly similar size to the other side. And I want to use my log dog assist here if I can get it to bite in. Nope. White oak is pretty hard, so nope. I don't want it to fall over on me. Check it for square. Oh, it's so close. I'm going to dog it low right here. Should be able to square it up now. Oh, it's like perfect. There's one little thing on here. Yeah, it's perfect right now. And when I dogged it low, it tweaked it just a teeny bit. Shouldn't need the middle one in. And this is now the time where you have to make a determination of whether you're going to lift this end or not, or that end if it's down there. We need to figure out where, now the pith, there's a double pith and it's way off center. So this is not about the pith. This is about saving wood at this point. So I'm 14 here. I'm 15 here. It is a little thick. In this case, I do think I want to tilt it. So I can leave that dog in down there, pull this one out, bring this up an inch. I should be able to do it by hand. Grab a little 1-inch block. This is the time that I see people just not do this. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's that they just don't understand. We are going to have to double check this for square after I do it, because it's probably going to move the log. But we're just going to go like this, slip a 1-inch board underneath it. That's going to get our height about right, because we can't go by the pith. Before we dog it, we'll check it for square. Hopefully it stayed pretty close. course, I can't check it there. Needs to go over just a hair. Perfect. Okay, dog it off and we're good. And we can take the top off it. It's going to end up being somewhere around, I want to get just below the bark right there. So somewhere around 13. Probably just take it off at 13. And we'll see what it looks like. Adjust our adjustable blade guide in. Come in at 13, we'll see what happens there. A nice piece of firewood here. Now, I do have a teeny little piece of wane right here. And a teeny little piece of wane on this top of this side. I could drop down 1.5 inches right now and cut all this wane off. However, if I drop down 1.5 inches, I'm still leaving it in the board. So it doesn't really make any sense to do that. I'm just going to flip the thing over and we will cut it on scale the other way. It makes no sense to cut that wane into a board when it's going to be cut into a board anyway. Mother humper. That doesn't mean that you have to cut it this way. This just is the way I'm going to cut it. Now we have to drop our stops down below 1.5 inches, which is basically all the way down. And come up maybe a hair. And then we can just mill the whole log out. Keeping in mind where the top cut's going to be, where we're actually going to get wood. Go. We just have to be careful we don't hit that one. You just dog it somewhere in the middle, I think. That did not dog very well. I'm going to dog it out here. All right, so now I'm going to come down to something around 10 inches to make my cut, and then get on scale and just mill through it. If there's any wane, there's a little bit of wane, whatever. We're giving them the biggest boards we can. There are not going to be many of them, but we'll go ahead and mill it. So I'm going to come up to my scale right above 11 just to double check this. I'm going to take it off right here first. I'm on scale right now, on 1.5 inch scale. that was not a very good board. So just going to give him a board. I really need to, yeah. So when I drop down 1.5 inches, pretty much all the wane's going to come off this side. And then we'll look at it and see if we want to adjust something. And make sure that I'm not making a mistake. If I come down 1 inch, I'm not helping. So I'm going to drop down 1.5 inches. He wants these. Let's see where Danny went. He wants these for some sort of treehouse thing, and he's not going to really care if there's a little bit of wane on them. Our tension is up, which is good, not sideways. So right now I'm at 9 5/8. We're just going to take a look at it. If we were grade sawing right now, I'm 9 5/8 by 9. Oh, I'm 9 5/8 by 10 1/8. If we were grade saw now, we'd be sawing best side. But in this case, this is just what he wants them flat sawn, 1 1/4 inch boards. Also, I do have a weird check in this. I assume when they fell this leader, it pulled the bottom down. The check only goes back to right here. There is nothing that I can do about that unless I flip it on its side this way. So which side do I have worse wane on? This side down here has got a lot of wane down here. I'm going to flip it over. I'm not losing anything by doing that because the dimension's actually bigger. No. I'm losing a teeny little bit doing that, but we're going to go ahead and cut this face off. Get rid of that wane. That was kind of a little bit of a mistake there, guys. I should have done that one cutter. Wouldn't have mattered. I had to get all that bark off anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. And I'm going to pause you guys because I just dropped it off the mill, which was a dumb thing to do. I got to come over now, move some stuff, get the thing back up on the mill with the machine, and we'll cut it out. All right, so we got her back on our dummy mistake back on the mill, and I'm going to mill this check out of it. So I'm going to come down 1.5 inches, mill this check out of it here, or the majority of the check out of it. It only goes back like this far, so that's fine. And then we'll see what's going to happen. I could just throw it on its side at that point. It's on scale this way, so I could throw it on its side and just mill it out. We'll see what it looks like. He's not going to care if he has a little bit of wane on him, but I don't want that check going through all the boards. So that's 10 high. I got to go down to 8.5 minus an 8. So 8 3/8. That should be 1.5 inches. Yep, perfect. We'll take that 1.5 inch board off. Now, one thing that stinks about white oak is you got to be really careful about leaving stuff on it, because it will get black stains all over it if you do. We're going to take this one off. We milled through the check. Now we're nice, clean heartwood all on that side. Man, my legs hurt so bad. Just going to keep this one off for now. Up on the pile. Going to want to clean this off. If I do flip it over, just the bunks, even though they're stainless steel, will make black marks on it. So this is all nice heartwood now. I'm thinking about flipping it all the way over and milling the heartwood off the, milling the stuff off the other side, the sapwood. That would leave me about just right around 6.5 inch boards, but they would be nice and clean. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think that's what we're going to do. Oh, get that. It's a block of white oak. Or I can just throw it on side right now and go ahead and mill it out. I do have got a bunch of weight on the bottom. I think it just makes more sense to do it that way. Probably easier just to flip it over like this. And I'm on scale in this dimension, so I don't want to do it that way. I want to take this down to like 6.5 the other way, get rid of some of that sapwood, give them fairly good heartwood planks. Yeah, definitely. This was a good decision. So we're just going to drop down. God damn it. Come on. What the fuck? We should be at 8 3/8, I think. Yeah, 8 3/8. So we're going to drop down to 7 7/8. I think it's, 6 3/4, I think. Let's see. It's 8 3/8. 1 inch is there. 1.5 inches. Yeah, 6 3/4. I'm going to take it off right there. There was no deflection in that piece at all, so that's good. So there's like no tension sideways on it at all. Now, we want our waste piece. Oh, we're on scale. There is no waste piece. We're going to flip it up, cut off the top, mill it all the way down to nothing. It's pretty nice, pretty much all chocolate heartwood now. Almost no sapwood on it at all. Boat builder's dream. One little piece of sapwood right here. Get this all the way over. we're just gonna have to keep an eye on this on our last cut. Make sure we don't. Make sure that we don't hit our stops on our last cut. I think I'm plenty low enough. Okay, so we should be able to just get back on scale here and mill this thing down. I'm actually on scale right there. Oh yeah, look at that. That's weird. It's on scale in 2 dimensions. Oh no, I just raised it up to that. No movement in it at all. Nice. One, two, three, four. Come back, drop it down 4, then go to the next. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to the next scale mark at 4 3/4. One, two, three, four, five, 6. Come back, drop it down 6, and go to the next scale mark. Right there. No, that's 4 3/4. 3 1/8. That doesn't seem right. Oh yeah, yeah. I might be able to get one more out of it. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Didn't need to go up that high. This should be my last cut. It should be at 1.5 inches. And we'll have to just double check on our way by our stops that we're not going to hit them. Should be clear. No, we're not going to clear. We're going to take a board off. Gotta take a board off. For some reason that ends over too far. Oh, leave this one here. Come on. I'll show you all the ray fleck in these. Pretty beautiful boards. And I'll have to clean them all off. You'll even get staining on these just from the saw band if it goes through dirt. Inch and a half. That's clear on that one. Yep, clear on that one. Hi, Denny. So that cleans us out, cuts us 1.5 inch bottom board because of the way we did our scale. And we're going to clean these off quick and I'll show them to you. You get a couple things out of my way. They're pretty sharp edges, so it's good to wear gloves when you're handling white oak. Unless you're the girls from Lumber Capital Log Yard, and then you never wear gloves, and that's great, but I'll guarantee you that I've worn out more gloves than most people in the world and have more cuts on my hands. Beautiful, awesome ray fleck in this. There is one little weird rotty spot in it. Oh, mother humper. That's just, I was telling one of the guys about this. They were talking about how to prune a tree, and a lot of them, what they do is when they prune a tree, they cut that prune at an angle like this, and what happens is when it rots out, it fills up with water and it rots into the tree. There's a spot like that in this. I'll show you guys. It kind of stinks, so this is beautiful. Look at that star ray fleck there. This one's got all ray fleck down it. This one's got all ray fleck on it. And then if you come down here, you see this spot. That's from a limb that they pruned at an angle and got water intrusion into the tree and rotted that spot out, and that kind of stinks. Wastes a good chunk of his board right there. Let's take a couple more off. My back might be to you a little bit here, but see what the ones look like underneath it. Just trying to get the sawdust off kind of both sides of them so that they don't get black staining on them. This one's got that same star fleck right here. I'll show you in a sec. And that rot spot didn't go very deep, which is nice. Cut nice and flat. I could go as fast as I wanted. It's got some cool star fleck there. You see the star ray fleck here. That's neat. Look at that one there. Star ray fleck. The medullary rays. It's got some star fleck here. All medullary rays through there. Some pretty cool boards. Let's just kind of flip these. Oh, get my glove stuck. Flip these last couple, and then we'll button this thing up. Let you look from this angle. You don't know how much you're going to be able to see. I just want to get them cleaned off so that they don't get all kinds of black sticking on them. These ones have no ray fleck in them at all. Maybe a little bit right here, but not much. Not much compared to the other ones. Shit. Let me get all that on there. Stuff will stain. You got to get it off. See, this black is just from the bunks. Well, no, that's not from the bunks. That's from where I stopped on the band. Checking. That's the metal that came off my band when I stopped and started to check to see if we were going to have clearance. You got to get that right off, or it'll black stain your wood. So that's pretty much it. Quick little $100 log, basically, for me. Band cut with no waves. The edges are nice and crisp and straight. These are should be around 6.5. They're 6 3/4 wide. All at 1.5 inches thick. Because I set my scale, my bottom one is also 1.5 inches thick. Should probably flip that one over and scrape it off. Make sure we get it all off. If you don't, you'll regret it. And it's also not a bad idea just to check your bottom one, just in case. Sometimes the wind on the cover of this thing makes your scale move, and it's 1.5 inches. No, it's 1 3/8. Nope, 1.5 inches, exactly. 1.5 inches. So it cut out perfect on scale. I will end up, I got to get those boards. You can see those boards over there. Got to get those boards out of there so I can pull up his couple of pieces that need to be edged. These ended up beautiful. Nice white oak, all heartwood. One little piece of sapwood on that bottom one right there. The rest of these are all just gorgeous. And we got one more to do, and he can come get them. So that is how I'll title this "How to Set Your Log Scale in Cutting White Oak." So that is how you set your log scale. I wouldn't say that. When I said earlier I made a little mistake, I didn't really make a mistake. I should have paid attention to that crack in the end a little earlier. However, if you're grade cutting this log, you're going to be continually flipping it and cutting the best face. Cut a face, look and see what you got, flip it, cut a face. So if I was grade sawing, I would have been flipping anyway. In this case, I'm just trying to give him similar boards because I don't really know what he's going to do with them yet. So I want as many at the same width. He can always, at 1.5 inches, he can always rip these down. It's not going to be a big deal. But that one crack in the end did complicate things. I should have made sure to cut that out earlier before I got on scale and started scale sawing it. So just a full mea culpa. And I've got a couple on the ground down here that may or may not work for them. I'll probably use them just to cover up these boards, put them on the top and not even edge them off. Leave the bark right on the outside. I don't see any reason to edge him. Like I said, he likes organic stuff anyway, so we'll be fine. And I also do have these couple up top up here that have a little bit of wane on them, and you can see where I cut the crack out. These two will be fine. 3, not 2, 3. These 3 will be fine also for him. He'd take them in slab form if he could get them in slab form. He just asked me on this one. He thinks somehow it's easier for me to blow it into a cant than slab it, which sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. From a holding standpoint, it's easier to blow it in a cant and cut it than slab it out. It's tougher to hold it when you're slabbing it. So if you guys have any questions, hit me up. For me and Danny, for now, Inspired Solutions out.